In order to get the gated slew function to work on the Sample Hold Slew module, a gate signal needs to be sent to the SL gate input. And a gate is essentially either a 0 or a 5 volt signal. A positive 5 volt signal means the gate is high, and therefore it will activate an envelope generator, or in this case it will switch on the slew function. Whereas a 0 volt signal will turn the function off. There's also an invert switch here, so you can reverse the polarity of the function, so that a plus 5 volt gate signal will actually turn it off. You'll probably find that different sequencers will require either the gate to be normal, like it is here, positive, or inverted. In the case of this Dark Time sequencer, I've got it inverted. And the top row of the sequencer is just sending CV to the VCO, so that's providing melody. Ordinarily, you would have a gate signal just for your envelope generator in order to control the amplification of each note. And so in order to sequence the slew, you need an additional row of gates, which would mean basically an extra sequencer, or a sequencer that has more than one channel. In the case of this one, it can be used as two 8-step sequencers. So the top row is just controlling the melody, but the bottom row is actually controlling the slew gate function. As a result, if I wanted to, I could take the gate from this channel as well and get it to operate an envelope generator to change the amplitude of each note. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep the VCA open permanently so you can hear exactly what the notes are doing. But more importantly, you need a sequencer where you can turn gates on and off. With a step sequencer such as this or the SQ-1, then you've got that function. But with something like the Keystep, there isn't, but there are ways of working around it. Currently, because I've got the gate inverted, that means that if I send it a gate signal, it will turn the slew function off. So by default, it's on. And all these steps at the moment are sending gate signals. So if I start the sequencer, you can't hear any slew function going on at all. But if I switch some of these steps off, it's the same process with the SQ-1. I've got the top row here controlling notes to provide a melody, and then the bottom row sending gate signals to the slew gate input. The difference is here, I don't want it to be inverted, so put the switch in the up position and press play. So all the gates are active at the moment on each step, but if I start removing them, if you're using a sequencer that doesn't have a second channel that you can use exclusively for controlling the slew function, or if you're using a sequencer where you can't turn off the gates for individual steps in the sequence, then there's various ways you can work around it. In the case of the Keystep, it has neither. It's a single channel sequencer and you can't turn off the gates for individual steps. So if I play this sequence with the gate output of the sequencer directly going to the slew gate input, and I've got the VCA open, so we'll just let through all the notes. At the moment I've got slew between all of the notes. And some sequencers, like the two I used before, you've got a function called duty cycle, and what that does is it sets the gate length for each individual note. And you can kind of trick this in many cases into not triggering the slew function by sending it a very short gate signal. And on the other sequences you can do that per step. You can't do it per step on the Keystep. You can set the overall gate length. And at the moment I've got it up at 90%, so the gate signal that's being sent is very long, so it's triggering the slew function. We'll make it shift and then turn down to 10%. Now at the moment you can hear that sometimes it's just starting to slew and sometimes it isn't. That's because the gate signal that's being sent is incredibly short, so it's just struggling to catch up with it, and it's almost defeating the slew function, but not quite. If I was to speed that up, then it would sound like there's no slew at all. So I can only really hear it when I slow the sequencer down. So really what's happening is it's just getting that tiny little burst of gate, and sometimes it's just giving you a little momentary amount of slew between each note. But I can defeat that by using an envelope generator. So if I take the gate output, send it to an envelope generator, then the output from the envelope generator to the slew gate input. So you can still hear it at the moment, it's doing the same thing. Every step, sometimes you hear a little bit of slew, sometimes not so much. If I increase the attack time, with a slower attack, what that's essentially doing is it's trimming off the start of that gate signal, so it's not actually receiving it, and therefore it's not turning the slew function on. So now each step has got no slew at all. But then what happens when you want the slew? Well, on sequences such as this, you've got the ability to tie notes together. And I've got another version of this sequence that's got the first bar just like this with individual notes with very short gates, but then it repeats the same series of notes with each step tied together. So you can hear on those last notes, it's still activating the slew function. That's because where the steps are tied, it's holding the gate signal high. So it's turning the gate signal on or turning the slew function on. That way I can kind of trick it to inadvertently turn off the slew where I don't want it and turn it on when I do. You can also use a regular CV to turn the slew function on and off, so long as you're sending it a CV signal within the range of 0 to +5 volts. This might be useful if you've got, let's say, two very rudimentary step sequences in a URAC case. For example, two 8-step sequences, and neither of which have the ability to turn off individual steps. In which case you can use one of them to control melody. So on the SQ-1 here, I'm simulating that by using this top row again. But then the other one you can use to turn the gate on and off on the slew module. So in this case I'm using both channels as CVs. This is sending CV to the VCO for the melody, and this is sending CV to the slew gate input. So I press play. At the moment I've got all of these set down to their minimum value, and because I've got the sequencer in 5 volt mode, it's sending 0 volts. So if I increase some of the steps to their maximum value, which then be +5 volts, so now it's just that CV value that's telling the slew gate when to enable the slew and when to turn it off. Notice I've got the gate in regular mode and not inverted, but if I invert it, then it will just be the opposite way around. And that could be quite a nice feature to use in a performance, just to mix things up a bit. And of course you've got slew up or down.